God told Noah to build a massive boat on dry land, for a flood no one had ever seen. For 120 years he built, while the whole world mocked him. Not one drop had fallen. Then the skies broke open. The rain fell 40 days and 40 nights, and only those inside the ark survived. Noah obeyed God before he saw a single sign. Sometimes obedience looks foolish, right up until the moment it saves your life. Build the ark, subscribe. His own brothers stripped him, threw him in a pit, and sold him as a slave. Then he was falsely accused and thrown into prison for years. Everything that could go wrong did. But God was building something. From that prison, Joseph rose to become the second most powerful man in Egypt, and he saved the very brothers who betrayed him. He told them, "What you meant for evil, God meant for good. Your pit is not your prison. It is your preparation." Subscribe. Pharaoh's army thundered behind them. The Red Sea blocked the way ahead. The people were trapped, and they panicked. But Moses stretched out his hand, and God sent a mighty wind that split the sea in two. The people walked across on dry ground, walls of water towering on both sides. When the army chased after them, the waters crashed down and swallowed them whole. When you are trapped with no way out, God makes a way through. Don't panic. Stand still and watch him move. Subscribe. Gideon was hiding, threshing wheat in a winepress, terrified of his enemies. And the angel of the Lord said to him, "The Lord is with thee, thou mighty man of valor." Mighty? He was the least in the weakest family. But God does not call you what you are. He calls you what he is making you. You feel like you are hiding. Heaven already calls you mighty. The men were too afraid to go to war, so God raised up a woman. Her name was Deborah, a prophet and a judge, the only one with the courage to lead. The general himself said, "I will not go unless you go with me." So she went, and the army that terrified an entire nation was destroyed. When everyone else freezes in fear, God is looking for the one who will rise. And he still raises mighty women. An army's general fled the battle and hid in a woman's tent. He thought he was safe. Her name was Jael. She gave him milk, waited until he slept, then drove a tent peg clean through his skull. Blessed above women, the scripture calls her. God does not only raise mighty men, he raises mighty women and ends wars through hands no one ever feared. They shaved his head. They put out his eyes. They chained him and they laughed. They thought the mighty man was finished. But his hair began to grow back, and in his final moment, blind and broken, Samson prayed one last time, and God gave him back his strength. Your failure is not the end of your story. God can make your last act greater than all the rest. Everyone saw a giant too big to beat. David saw a target too big to miss. 9 feet of armor and rage against a shepherd boy with a sling. He said, "You come with a sword, but I come in the name of the Lord of hosts." One stone, one throw, the giant fell. The thing that terrifies everyone else is the very thing God built you to bring down. Everyone else ran. He stayed. One man against an army. He swung until his arm went numb. Then he kept swinging. His hand clave unto the sword, and the Lord wrought a great victory that day. His name was Eleazar. His hand froze to the blade. He would not let go. You are tired. You want to quit. That is the moment you were built for. Do not drop the sword. The victory comes to the ones who will not let go. An entire army came for a field, a worthless little field of beans. Everyone fled. He did not. He planted his feet in the dirt. He stood in the midst of the ground and defended it, and the Lord wrought a great victory. His name was Shammah. He defended what others called too small to fight for. Your ground looks small. Defend it anyway. God meets you where you stand. The mighty are not the ones who win big. They are the ones who will not move. It was snowing. The ground was ice, and he climbed down to where the lion waited. No room to run, no footing. The worst possible day to fight. He went down also and slew a lion in the midst of a pit in time of snow. His name was Benaiah, and he walked into the thing built to kill him. Your pit is not your grave, it is your forge. God is not keeping you out of it. He is making you mighty inside it. Her people were marked for death, and the only one who could stop it was a girl who had become a queen. To approach the king uninvited meant death, but Esther said, "If I perish, I perish." And she walked in anyway, and she saved an entire nation. You were not placed where you are by accident. Maybe you were born for such a time as this. In a single day, Job lost his wealth, his servants, and all 10 of his children. Then his body was covered in painful sores from head to toe. His own wife told him, "Curse God and die." His friends insisted he must have deserved it. But Job fell to the ground and worshipped. "Though he slay me, yet will I trust him." And in the end, God restored to Job double everything he had lost. Your worst day is not your last day. Hold on. Subscribe. One prophet stood against 450. Elijah told them, "The God who answers by fire is the true God." They cried out to their God all day. Nothing. Then Elijah soaked his altar with water 3 times and prayed one simple prayer. Fire fell from heaven and consumed everything, the offering, the wood, the stones, even the water. You are never outnumbered when God is on your side. 1 plus God is always a majority. Subscribe. Right after his greatest victory, Elijah crashed. Exhausted and afraid, he ran deep into the wilderness and begged God to just take his life. But God did not rebuke him. He sent an angel with food and let him sleep. Then God passed by. There came a great wind, then an earthquake, then a fire, but God was in none of them. And after the fire came a still, small voice. Sometimes God is not in the noise of your crisis. He is in the whisper. Get quiet and listen. Subscribe. They threw Daniel into a den of hungry lions and sealed the stone shut. His crime? He refused to stop praying to God. They thought it was over, but God shut the lions' mouths. All night those beasts lay down beside him. At dawn the king ran to the den, and Daniel walked out without a scratch. When you refuse to bow, God will shut the mouth of whatever was sent to devour you. Don't stop praying. Subscribe. 3 men refused to bow to the king's golden idol. So he heated the furnace 7 times hotter and threw them in. The flames were so hot, they killed the guards. But the king looked into the fire and leaped up. There were now 4 men walking in the flames, and the 4th looked like the Son of God. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego walked out without even the smell of smoke. God doesn't always keep you out of the fire. Sometimes he walks in with you. Subscribe. Jonah ran from God's call, so a violent storm hit his ship. He was thrown overboard, and a great fish swallowed him whole. For 3 days he sat in the belly of that fish, in total darkness. But there at the bottom, he finally cried out to God, and God heard him. The fish spat him onto dry land, and Jonah got a second chance. You cannot run far enough to escape God's purpose for your life. Even the belly of the fish becomes an altar. Subscribe. He demanded his inheritance early, left home, and wasted every coin on wild living. When a famine hit, he ended up starving in a pig pen, longing to eat the pig's food. Broken and ashamed, he decided to crawl home and beg just to be a servant. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and ran to him and threw his arms around him. No lecture, just a robe, a ring, and a feast. That is exactly how God receives you when you come home. Subscribe. A furious storm slammed the boat. Waves crashed over the sides, and the terrified disciples were certain they would drown. And where was Jesus? Asleep in the stern, on a pillow. They shook him awake, screaming, "Master, do you not care that we perish?" He stood up, and he spoke 3 words to the raging sea. "Peace, be still." Instantly the wind died, and the water went glassy calm. The same voice that silenced that storm is in the boat with you right now. Peace. Be still. Subscribe. In the middle of a storm, the disciples saw Jesus walking on the water. Peter called out, "Lord, if it is you, tell me to come." Jesus said one word, "Come." And Peter stepped out of the boat onto the waves, and he walked. But then he saw the wind, and fear gripped him, and he began to sink. He cried, "Lord, save me!" And instantly Jesus reached out and caught his hand. You only start to sink when you look at the storm instead of him. Keep your eyes up. Subscribe.